Welcome back to Wellness with Delaney. Today is all about brain health and it's about to blow your mind. I'm with Terry Moore and Thalia Taylor from Beacon40. We're going to talk about brain health frequencies and what you can do to optimize your focus, cognition, memory, sleep, and beyond. You guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Delaney, I'm so glad to be here. It's wonderful to have a chance to talk about these things.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
having us.
Oh, you're so welcome. And something I love about this is it's not every day that I get to interview people on a topic that's entirely new to me, right? And being in the wellness space, I feel like you get to learn so many crazy things. So when I learned about the 40 Hertz lamp and what it can do for your brain, I was like, hold on. I need to get in on this. This is crazy. Can you guys tell me a little bit about the story on how you started Beacon40?
Oh my. Yes, the story goes back to about 2015 when my late wife, Lynn, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And I did what I think is typical for people in my position. I threw myself into the world of Alzheimer's disease and research and discovered that there not only were no cures, but there were no standard treatments, and it was really a vast unknown space. But I looked around as much as I could, and I discovered some research that was being done at MIT. And at MIT, they had taken a population of white mice that had been bred to have high levels of plaque in their brains. And they exposed them to a light that flashed at one of the natural brain frequencies, the frequency known as gamma. And in very short time, they had half as much plaque in their brains and had begun to relearn skills. And I was so thrilled by that discovery. I thought, well, gee, flashing light, here's something that's not dangerous, that's not invasive, that's not harmful. So I hired an engineer to build me a 40 hertz light. Uh, and it came in the form of 3 hockey puck size LEDs. And I took those and I put them around my wife's television and turned them on and told the staff that it was a decoration, just leave them on. And then I went on vacation for about a little more than a week. And I came back, and the caregiver, the senior chief caregiver said, I think she's better than when you left. And I spoke to her doctor, who said, these things are cyclical. They go up and down. But she's on an uptick now. So I then told them and some others what I had done, and they all said the same thing, and in most often the same words. And the words were, can you get me one? Because here's the notion of cognitive disease is something that affects virtually everyone or everyone's family to some degree at some time or another. And it was a problem I had at that very moment. So I decided that I think destiny was calling me to make a device that produced gamma frequency, which is, say, 40 hertz light, for the consumer market. And I did that. I wanted to make this available right away because I needed it right away. And I knew others, and goodness knows there were countless others who needed something right away. And I didn't want to wait for the science and the research to finally produce a final solution to this problem. I needed something right away. So I invented the Beacon40. And I'm pleased to say after several years on the market, I feel like we're really helping a lot of people. My wife, who, as I said, was diagnosed in 2015, was expected to live 2 more years at that time, but she actually lived 7 more years.
Wow.
And had some cognitive moments and clearly some pleasurable moments almost up until the very end.
Wow.
So my story is a real success, and I'm hoping others are too.
Yeah, and I think, and this is a conversation I've also had recently where, like you said earlier, everybody seems to know somebody who struggles with neurodegenerative disease, right? I just lost my grandpa to late stage dementia. And so as I'm learning these things, I'm like, I so wish I had knowledge about all these different preventative measures and proactive measures we can do for brain health. And so how important is it to get it out to people now, not even people who are struggling with neurodegenerative disease, but people who down the road could, right? Like proactively taking care of our brains. And that's
Well,
so important.
that's why I'm using it. I mean,
Yeah.
I have it on my desk all the time. That's my objective is to keep any neurodegenerative process at bay. And I think 40 hertz light is one of the things that does that.
Absolutely. Okay. So, and I think for some people listening, they might not even know what 40 hertz means, like what a 40 hertz light is. So what does this title mean?
40 hertz. That means 40 flickers on and off every second. That's what a hertz is. It's a number of cycles per second. So this light flashes on and off 40 times per second. And you can barely see the flicker, but you can see the flicker. And I suppose that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Because if you spend, we say, at least an hour a day in its presence, and again, it's not something you have to look at, but if you spend an hour a day in its presence, you get the benefit of 40 hertz light. And the benefit is that, from what's known at the moment, this prompt of 40 hertz, the stimulus, causes the brain to produce its own gamma frequency. And that frequency is equated with a number of things like health, brain health, cognition, memory, mood, and sleep.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so then, and the gamma frequency is essentially, so it's a byproduct of the 40 hertz light. Is that basically the same frequency in our brain, or what is the gamma frequency?
Yes, that's the same frequency.
Your brain has different waves, brain waves that happen, and the highest frequency is gamma. And that is around the 38 hertz range and up. And 40 hertz is the perfect number to stimulate your brain in training it back to go into that frequency naturally. As we age, our brain tends to go into gamma less easily. Some people, like advanced meditators, they've done studies, Tibetan monks and people of the like, they have a naturally high regular gamma frequency throughout their lifespan that they've created and cultivated through their meditation and spiritual practices. And this is a way that you can entrain your brain to easily go into the gamma state without a medication or without having to meditate for 40 years on the side of a hill in Tibet, which would be wonderful, but we don't have time to do that. I just wanted to add to Terry's response to your question, to give some comparison. 40 hertz is a visible flicker, but your computer screen or your phone, that refreshes closer to 60 hertz. So you might sometimes be aware, that screen there is a slight flicker. Sometimes you notice it. So this is a little more, not as subtle as that screen refresh on your computer or laptop or phone.
Amazing. Okay, and then I want to get into showing in a second. I'll want us to show the lamp, but really fast. I think this is really something that a lot of people don't understand, and I know that there's like the side of frequency that's rooted in science, and then there's a side that people are a little scared of. They're like, wait, I hear frequency and I'm gonna think woo woo, right? Not everyone, but some people, and so I think it's really important that people understand the different like brain waves and the brain frequencies and what they mean. Could you walk me through the different kind of stages of brain frequencies?
Yes, I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
When your brain is sleeping, it is at a lower frequency waves. So the brain waves range, and as Terry mentioned, you have a frequency. We're talking about 40 hertz here. We're starting down at the low end, at the 0 to 5. 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and then we go into beta, which is a little bit in between, and then gamma, which has an upper end. It starts around 38 and goes higher. So when you're sleeping, your brain waves go into a lower state, delta waves, that's for repair, for detoxification of your brain, and the next state you go into is a theta state, which is associated with like a lucid or dream state. Then we have alpha state, where you're in between that sleepy, kind of awake, daydreaming type. It's a little more daydreamy, but less planning, less active. So you're aware and you're present. It's a nice state to be in as well. Beta is the next state, and that's where most of us spend most of our time operating. And then some people refer to high beta. And this is your executive, your brain is on duty at work. So it's processing, planning, thinking ahead. So if you were to think of an example where you looked out the window, if you were in alpha state, you would say, oh, it's so beautiful and green out there. If you were in beta, you would say, oh, it's so beautiful and green, I need to cut the grass. If you're in high beta, you'd say, oh, we need the landscaper to come and we need to plant this plant and we need to cut this tree back. And, oh, I think I want to put, a pool in the backyard. So you're even more planning. Anxiety and ruminations and things also can live in those states. So your brain needs to be in all these phases and have all these waves naturally. Where gamma comes in, it's often associated with an aha or a eureka or a moment of flow or creativity. And you don't have to be a musician or an artist to experience this. It can be that you're in flow with what you're doing. Where some of these other states, you're present, but maybe you're on autopilot and you're working up. Gamma is associated with that experience of happiness, joy, flow, creativity, where you're in the zone. You can be very focused, but you're not in a state of high anxiety or planning. And a lot of people associate gamma with pleasure, orgasm, bliss, joyful, equanimity. Sometimes people report similar experiences with psychedelics, and they are often in, depending on the psychedelic, they might be using it to get to a gamma state. Sometimes they're using it to get to a theta state or another state.
Okay, this is so fascinating. And this might be too TMI, but I feel like this is a very TMI show. So we're going to ask it anyways.
We're here for it.
Let's be TMI.
Yeah, amazing. So let's say, I know for obviously like men versus women, like when having sex, it can be a lot harder for women to orgasm than men. Are women having a hard time getting into the gamma frequency? Is that like something that contributes?
So that is something that, as we know, Delaney, that there is not enough research on women. There is even less research on our bodies and our sexual health. So that is an area that there's not really much data around that. And to be frank, that's something, we hope to change as we learn more about our aging bodies, our growing bodies, our hormones, our sex lives, and with longevity and the ability to live much longer active lives like Terry's living and being proactive, these are things we have to start talking about. So to answer your question, there's not a lot of true science or research around that. And some people would even say the female orgasm is has a mystique or a mystery, and we don't know how it happens, where it's a little bit different for men. But there are people in the biohacking space that are working to understand this a little better. I recently had a conversation with Dave Asprey, the father of biohacking, about this exact thing and using gamma to get into these states and how you could use brain entrainment to allow yourself to access the states more easily. So the overall point I want to make is the ways you use to entrain your brain, whether it's meditation, mindfulness, 40 hertz, or some of the other binaural beats or other wavelengths and frequency tools that are available. You can learn to get into this state and see what it feels like. And then as your body gets more used to it, you can do it naturally and holistically. And that can be in the bedroom as well. So turning off that beta, planning the grocery list, and I have to pick up the kids, and allowing yourself to be present and open to the experience would provide, much more bliss.
Yeah, and I feel like that's so real for women. Like we always have a million things to do, especially for mothers. And it's like it can be hard to turn off the like, okay, this is my to-do list, this is what I need to do, even during sex. And this would be really interesting for the women to use like in the moment to see how that works. Okay, and so I know you guys just got back, like you mentioned, from Dave Asprey from 40 Years of Zen.
Yes.
I would love to hear a little bit about your experience with the brain training there.
Yes, Terry and I have both done 40 years of Zen. I just got back from level 2. Terry and I did level 1 about a year ago. And we have very different experiences, and we went in with very different brainwave patterns. as you just alluded to. Mine was very busy with beta, more active than it should be with the things that I think about as a mom and a working woman today. And Terry is in a little different place where he's learning Arabic and doing lots of projects and engagement. So I'll let you speak to your experience.
Yes, but I think it's worth noting that at your 40 years of Zen experience this year, you were pronounced the Gamma Queen.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I'm a
Something's
Gamma
working.
girl.
Something must be working, right?
Yeah, so when we first went to 40 Years of Zen, the focus, they look at your brain waves, they do EKG scans, and they look at the activity while you're not really doing an activity. So they compare, your brain at rest and when it's engaged with the technology they've developed. And then they show you, these are areas of your brain that are active, that may be a little less active here, a little more active here. These are aligned with what you're experiencing and reporting and what your goals are. So if you want to conquer the world and that's your goal, maybe we should work on this frequency or this area of the brain. And so they're doing entrainment. The level 1 is focused on working and doing planning, meditations, and sometimes self-healing and forgiveness, whatever the person needs in the alpha state. And they provide neurofeedback to when your meditation is happening in a sensory deprivation pod, they're providing this beautiful feedback to your brain to keep it in that state. Level 1 focuses on working in alpha. Actually, all the levels focus on working in alpha state for most of the work. And then there are times when they turn on to heighten your gamma state. Terry's experience, our first time going, he was able to go into the meditations immediately and be present and have a gamma wave presence show up for the first few minutes. And
Wow.
then as it continued, depending on what he was doing in his meditations, he would change and vary and sometimes even start to fall asleep.
Right.
Because it's very intensive. And he was able to do that automatically. I was not able to do that. When they turned on the gamma reinforcement neurofeedback, I saw some gamma waves. This time, I was there doing level 2, and I've been using Beacon40. I've been doing other things, not drug related, but focusing on diet and movement and some other things around my brain health. That when I was able to go into the gamma state, I did so for over an hour. And I basically had a hysterical fit of laughter for an hour.
Wow.
And then it was another time I went into the state. The goal was to go in with gratitude, and that was my exercise that I intended to do. And I was in the state for about 20 minutes, and it was just pure bliss, equanimity, acceptance. And I was focusing on gratitude and things around my life that I'm happy to have. Terry?
Yes. Well, these are interesting and in many ways exotic kinds of experiences, at least for many of us. But I'd like to get back to the value of 40 Hertz for all of us, because it's wonderful to have a product that I think is good for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that 40 Hertz has been linked to is better sleep.
Mm.
And as they say, if you don't sleep well, you don't age well. There was a study last year that demonstrated, at least in the group they studied, an 80% reduction in sleep fragmentation. So those people had their sleep broken up less by changing sleep states into a much more natural, calm state. And then just in the last year, there was a study done with insomniac children. And exposure to 40 Hertz for, I think it was half an hour a day,
Yes.
had a dramatic effect on their sleep. So, and let me also add that the thing we most often hear from our customers is, I'm sleeping better.
Mm-hmm.
But then they also add, their mood is better, and their focus is better.
Yeah.
And focus is important for all of us, as you mentioned earlier, because there's so many things that are vying for our attention.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
there's so much noise out there, and being able to focus is a real benefit.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm excited. I just started using this. I've used it just a couple times. And I'll tell you, right before this, I was doing a bunch of admin. And so I turned on my Beacon40 lamp for I think I had it for between an hour and 2. I turned it on for 2 hours, but then I had to get up eventually. And I came out, it was like, that kind of wormhole focus where it feels like you just get so much done and you're not like reaching for something. I really struggle with is starting a project because I work in so many different areas, being a content creator, podcaster on a creative team for a biohacking company. And I'll start a project and be like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. Oh my gosh, I need to do this. And my brain, like, it starts a million projects and it's so hard to sit and finish it. Or I'm in the middle of something and I'll catch myself opening my phone, opening Instagram, like subconsciously. And it's like total distraction. And for the past couple hours, I had none of that. I was just laser focused on the task I needed to get done. And it wasn't like a sexy task. It was literally
Right.
like a boring admin task. And I was laser focused on it. And I came out of it, I was like, whoa. And not only that, but I didn't feel drained. I felt really energized, which normally staring at a computer for hours, I come out of it feeling really fried. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So, okay, can we show them how this works and like do a little visual of the lamp itself? I
All
have mine
right.
right here, so we can both turn
We would
on.
be happy to do so.
I have one here, but for those who are just listening, let me add that the Beacon40 is about the size of a small stereo speaker, and it's designed so that it can fit into almost any decor, and it turns on and flashes at 40 hertz, 40 cycles a second.
Like a candle flicker,
Like
sort
a candle, very close to a candle flicker.
Yeah.
And we've also designed it so that you can change the intensity and make it brighter
Really
or
cool.
dimmer as you need, and change the color from warmer to cooler for different times of day or different decor. This is a passive device. It's supposed to be part of one's environment. It's healthful just because you're in the same place with it. So we wanted it to fit in and not look like a piece of scientific apparatus.
Yeah, it looks nice.
It's as I said, it's kind of like a small stereo speaker.
Yeah.
And to that point, Terry actually hired a design team to create this with intention. He didn't want a medical looking device that, bothered his wife or the people around. And he hired a team that worked on the Sonos speaker.
Oh, that's
And
right.
they've created a beautiful product. It's very functional, but it also fits into many types of home decor. As he said, we've won 2 design awards for not just the functionality, but for the beauty of it as well.
Wow.
And
We know the value of 40 hertz, but we wanted it to be easy to use.
Yeah.
We wanted it to be friendly and not obtrusive.
Yeah, it's really minimalist, which I love. And I'm somebody where like no matter how good something is, I won't use it if it looks ugly because I like don't like it out. And this is so minimalist and so pretty. And then okay, so for people, they're probably going to wonder like the different brightness or the warm versus cool setting, does that change or affect the efficacy of the lamp itself?
not at all.
Not at all.
Amazing.
The science is in the flicker, and that 40 hertz frequency it hits the periphery of your eye. You don't need to stare at it. You just need to have it in your line of sight. That is activating your brain and training it to go into that gamma rhythm naturally. And it could be light, dark, whatever. As Terry said, some people use it for different times of day. They want to have a
Most of
different look.
it seems most of our customers have it in next to their computer or next to their television or in their kitchen or in their gym.
Ooh, gym would be nice. That'd be nice to work out next to it.
Yes, and you can use it, as you said, you felt like you were really able to dive into your work. So at your desk, some people don't get any feeling like that when they're using the lamp, but they notice the benefits when they're sleeping better, or it's passive. So they might do their yoga routine with the lamp on, and then they don't even notice until it turns off that it's on. So they were engaging with the lamp passively, but you could use it. We have people that use it while they're doing their skincare routine and before bed. And one thing I do want to add, you don't need to stare at it directly, and you don't need to use it while you sleep. It doesn't help you while you're sleeping, but it can help you sleep better. And I just wanted to touch on what you said when you're talking about all this distraction and you're doing all these things and one thing pulls you away and then the phone, that's not your fault. It's not a character flaw. Today we are hard on ourselves because of what we're doing. You're doing amazing things, so
Thank you.
it's no wonder you're getting pulled away for other things. But it's really a brain-based challenge or opportunity, if you want to look at it that way, to focus on your brain and adapting it to this constant demand for our attention. As a content creator, you know that we have very quick windows of attention on social media, in the advertising space, and actually all around our environment. So our brain's getting retrained by these other elements and algorithms and our environment. So it's good for us to focus on the challenge or the opportunity to realign it and get back into the rhythms that we need. And that's unique to each person.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really good reminder. Like, we live in a world that is vying for our attention everywhere you go. I mean, like, I was just in Vegas a few days ago, and it's so
Oh, God.
hyper stimulating everything around you, right? Everything wants your attention. But it's like that on the internet. It's like that in work. It's like that in life. Whether it's like, even if you're not on social media, I feel like life can be like that, right? And so you kind of have to, I feel like to succeed, like you mentioned, you have to think about the adaptability, the training, and almost see it like a game. Like, see your brain like a puzzle. Like, how do I hack this? How do I
Yeah.
optimize this, instead of becoming like a passive victim to the systems in place, right? And I always think of life like, I can be a victim and a consumer, or I can be a creator and an adapter. And I want to be a creator and adapter. And I think this lamp is a really good way to do that, to be like, okay, so this is our world, but I want to, I don't want to, because our world is so hyper stimulating, I don't want to fall into that. I want to be able to focus.
Delaney, that's a wonderful perspective.
Thank you.
I like that very much. Yes, we want to be in control. We want to preserve our cognitive health as much as we can. And I think Beacon40 does that.
And it's a passive way to help people feel grounded, to feel clear. If they're having trouble with sleep, helping them by using during the day to sleep better at night, so you're less reactive. You can choose how you want to show up in this hyperstimulated world, because we can't all go on a digital detox like 40 years of Zen, like I just did. We live in New York City, so we walk out every day. There's, even inside our home, there are sounds and things. And when you're not able to get grounded and be clear, you're you're having to compensate and overcompensate constantly to overcome all the things that are coming at you. And this is a passive way while you're doing whatever you're doing in your regular day. Maybe you can't stop all the phone calls and Zoom calls back to back and things that you're doing, but you can do things like 40 hertz. And you can also do, nutrition, sleep, meditation. All those are very important, and we're advocates of that for brain health. It's not that just the easy one-step fix. You need to look at brain health as self-care. And
Yes.
just like we do skin care and we focus on our fitness, sometimes we forget about thinking about our brain that way. But your brain is a muscle and you can train it. And this is a form of strength training for your mind, actually.
Yes, and one of the wonderful things about the Beacon40 is you can do something else while you're using it. It's a passive device.
That's the best.
And
Yes.
there's no medicine and there's no wearable. You don't have to wear it. You can go on camera. You could do the Zoom call. Usually I always have my Beacon40
Right.
on, and people can see the little flicker. Maybe it gives me a little glow. I hope. But
But it's not like you have to put on a headband or goggles
Yes.
or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's subtle, it's easy. And I think those are the best biohacks too, because there are so many things out there that require you to pass or actively go do something.
yes.
Whether you're in the sauna or you're cold plunging or like whatever you're doing. You take something, you do something, and those are great. I love those, but we only have so many hours in a day. So to have something that you can stack with everything else you're doing is really, really valuable, because you can get your work done. You can have a meal, you can get your workout done, and this is just quietly in the corner, passively helping to optimize your brain. I think that's really cool. Okay, you guys mentioned earlier about the sleep, and I know I struggle with this, so I'm really curious about it. So I wake up a lot of times, not every day, but a lot with brain fog, and I know I can remember waking up throughout the night. I don't actually know how many times I wake up throughout the night, but I do know that I'm waking up at least some, because I'll remember. And so, like, why are people waking up foggy? Why are people falling asleep and waking up throughout the night?
So there's a lot of answers to that. Sleep's very complicated. Would you like to start, Terry?
No, go ahead, please.
So to answer your question, Delaney, it's hard to speak to why you're waking up. It could be that your brain is overactive and it's not shutting down as you're
Probably.
going to sleep. Sometimes a late meal, your body might be overactive in different ways. That's sending messages to your brain. Hormonal shifts, especially in women of all ages, and particularly in perimenopausal and menopausal age frame, they start having frequent wake ups and sleep disturbances for hormonal reasons. It could be your cat or your partner or any number of things. But when your brain is exposed to a 40 hertz light during the day, we recommend an hour. And one of the studies from a few years back was 1 hour a day. They were able to see that this brain entrainment during the day is allowing the brain to work better when you are in the sleep state. You're not in gamma state, but when your brain is in those lower states, delta, it's doing detox. There are several theories around 40 hertz and why it works, and it's not clear yet. We have ongoing studies around the glimpse system in sleep, and perhaps this having gamma and having a high frequency and regularity of gamma in your brain allows your body to process this glymphatic system better. There's also the theory that it's activating the microglia in your brain, and they're working as little janitors at night. So they're detoxing your brain while you sleep. While we're still trying to learn that, we are finding out from experiences and more studies. We just recently did a 6-week study with Aura rings, and for that 6-week study, we chose people that were having poor sleep problems, and for Aura, they have a sleep score. Theirs was less than 70, so they, really wanted to work on their sleep. And the results were surprising to us. It was the first time with our device we could see biometrics. And we learned that the users reported a 48% improvement in focus, and they reported a 40% reduction in their overall stress or perceived stress, and 46% boost in their mood. So we know these things are not while you're sleeping, but is it coming from better sleep at night, or is it allowing them to sleep better because they're not so anxious and stressed? And they did report a 19% improvement in their overall sleep quality. As
Wow.
Terry mentioned, the 80% reduction in sleep fragmentation was done with 40 hertz for 1 hour a day.
Wow.
And that's what you're talking about, going between the different sleep and waking states at night.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that affects it over time. I'm really excited because that's like one of my biggest health goals is staying asleep at night.
As I said, the number one thing we hear from our customers is, I'm sleeping better. So can we hear from you in a few weeks after
Oh,
you've
heck
been with the
yeah.
Beacon for a while?
Heck yeah. I will be definitely letting you know and letting the
I would
audience
like that
know.
very much.
Yeah, and something that you touched on, Thalia, that I think is so fascinating is okay, the lymphatic system. So I'm really into lymphatic drainage, and obviously, I don't think everyone knows what the lymphatic system is. So I'd love to kind of explain that, but I think it's really interesting the idea of detoxing your brain because we can't just like. You can massage your lymph nodes, you can massage your face, all these things, and drain lymph, but you can't really self administer lymphatic drainage in the brain. So, can you explain a little bit how that works?
So we're not sure exactly the mechanism of action, how 40 hertz and the brain entrainment affects that system. The latest study that points us in that direction was with children that had insomnia, and they were using 40 hertz exposure for about 30 minutes a day, and they fell asleep faster and stayed asleep longer. Why they had insomnia, and they were diagnosed with that, and that was a study we didn't do, and a major research organization did, and it showed some increases in their adenosine levels in the brain. So that's a clue that something in the pathways in the brain in this system is being activated, but we don't quite know what yet. And we talk a lot in biohacking space, but also in the nutrition space, and even sometimes in women's health, like with plastic surgery and things like that. We talk a lot about doing detoxes, whether it's a juice cleanse or a liver detox, coffee enema, a lymphatic drainage massage. We have devices that you can go to spas or go to, practitioners to do this. You can get lymphatic drainage therapy from licensed massage therapists, but you can't, as you said, do this on your brain. And if all this stuff is stuck in your brain as you're a younger person, you're carrying it throughout your life. This predisposes you to early onset or to cognitive decline. And it is something you can control. It's about 45% of the cases of Alzheimer's or cognitive decline are preventable. And this is one area that's very important to keep your brain detoxed. And this, you'll see automatic results. There is a new therapy that's new to me, I should say, craniosacral. And this kind of bridges the gap in what you're talking about, like doing the lymphatic drainage for the body. But it's getting the area around the neck and opening up and making sure you're aligned properly to get that drainage of the spinal fluid up, moving up and down. Some people want to call it chakras. Some people want to talk about it in anatomical terms, and actually moving that fluid throughout your body and refreshing it through the body, through the whole system is very important. And I'm really glad that you're fascinated and interested in talking about that, because a lot of times we don't think about these things until they're a problem.
Mhm.
And being proactive and understanding, well, this could be affecting me, not blaming yourself for, well, I'm just not with it. I'm just not focused. I'm stressed. But actually acknowledging it could be that maybe my brain could operate a little better. Maybe I could use some of these tools to help find out what works best.
Yeah, and a lot of my audience is in their 20s, so they're not really thinking about Alzheimer's, dementia, like cognitive decline in general. So with things like the 40 hertz, I feel like this can be an easy way just to implement like longevity into your routine now. Is it important for people in their 20s or even younger to be preventing neurodegenerative diseases at this current age?
Well, it's always good to prevent degenerative diseases, whether you're talking about heart disease or brain disease. But preventing neurodegenerative disease
Hard word.
is, yes, it is. Thank you. Is certainly valuable, but there are other values to having 40 hertz light for younger people, and that has to do with things we were talking about, like sleep and focus
Yeah.
and mood. And for the younger population, those things are important, particularly, as you say, in this world that everything is vying for our attention. And then throw on top of that the fact that it's good for longevity of brain health.
Yeah.
And to your point about 20-year-olds thinking about this, some of them are in college. Many of them now, 20 is very different today than it was when I was 20 or when Terry was 20. At 20 years old, you can be in college, you can be a content creator, you can be an entrepreneur. It's very common for young people we have so many tools and modalities available to us to do a lot of things. And also when you're 20, or 21 or 22, you have a lifestyle change. You can party, you want to be active, you have maybe not the best nutrition, maybe not the best sleep. And we're finding that as younger people start using the lamp more and more, we have some creatives using it, and they're using it like you had the experience with on your desk. They're able to use the lamp and really dive in, and then they have the time to do the other things. Some of them, myself, when I was around that age, I had this idea of sleep when you're dead. And now I'm trying to make up for that
Yeah.
by catching up with a lot of sleep. And sleep really is a non-negotiable for me now and for many people. And lots of people in the entrepreneurial space, they are not able to do the things that they want to do and change the world and create these new technologies or ideas or fashions or content to share unless they have tools that help them get the best and optimize themselves. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of looking at not just prevention, but optimization and
Yeah.
how you can maybe achieve your goals or live your best life with these tools that really are so simple. I mean, if you want to play better video games, we have people using the lamp while they're playing video games, and
Wow.
and that's their motivation. So that's not a bad thing. We have creators using it in different spaces. Some people are meditating with it with their eyes open.
Mhm.
All sorts of
I'm very
activities.
surprised to find how much it's been accepted by the meditation users,
Yeah.
because gamma seems to be a big deal in meditation, as
Yeah.
we said a little earlier. And here we have a device that produces gamma light.
It's incredible. And I actually cannot believe I'm about to admit this on the internet. So I hope my future child does not listen to this. But I think what I can compare using the light to is like, okay, before I was healthy and smart, when I was in college, I was a typical college kid and I would party during the weekend and then try to study and like not be able to focus and be drained. And so there were a couple times that I would never recommend anyone do this. Let me just say, a couple times that I did take Adderall studying for finals and stuff in school. And like so bad, but the level of focus, I remember being like the level of focus I had was unmatched. It reminded me today, like I actually had a thought today. I was like, I feel like I did when I was 19 and I would take Adderall and study for finals. And it's really cool because like with the college kids, I get that it can be really hard to balance like your social life, if you're in Greek life, if you're partying, whatever you're doing, having a job, and then like still trying to do well in school. But this applies to anywhere in life. And the focus, like I wish that I'd had something like that back then because maybe I wouldn't have made such dumb decisions with what I was taking to focus. I mean, I really did feel this like laser sharp, like it's like that tunnel vision focus, but in a good way where like you're not like normally I'm looking to the right, looking to the left, and my dog needs this, my husband needs this, I'm hungry, I need coffee. But it was like I was just focusing on what I needed to get done. It was crazy.
I'm so glad to hear you attribute that to your being in the presence of a Beacon40.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear.
And, there's no shame in admitting that if we don't talk about these things, like, especially when people are younger, like you said, before you were smart, they don't share this, right? And so they're expected to do all these things and live this life and live it on the internet too, by the way, and
Yep.
look good doing it. And they're not talking about it. And so people do turn to Adderall and other pharmaceuticals. Maybe they turn to things that are illicit. Stimulants have been around for a long time. These medicines are great for people who need them, but when it becomes a crutch or a go-to, and what you're doing with your liver and what you're doing to affect the rest of your body, throwing off your sleep, you're putting chemicals in your body that weren't meant to be there. And while I have a background in pharma and I consult with pharma companies, I'm not opposed to that. But for me personally, anything that's non-pharmacological or not even supplements, I'll take supplements, but I would rather do a natural approach, something that is already healthy for my brain rather than do something that's unhealthy to make it work. But I see that people at all ages, even when they're young and dumb, they succumb to this pressure to do these things. And then I look at Terry, and he is in his upper 70s. I'll let him tell his age if he wants to, but he's studying Arabic 3 times a week. That's one of the hardest languages to learn. He just gave his last TED Talk in 24. That was his third TED Talk on the main stage and was one of the top 10 top 5 TED Talks of the year. He's running this company as CEO. He has other initiatives, a spiritual offering. He's doing all these things at his age. And we talk sometimes about our leaders, in the White House and in charge being an advanced age, but they're doing a lot of things too. So it could apply to someone who is Terry's age, my age, your age, someone in college or in their early 20s doing all these things. It's great to have a tool that any of us can use to optimize.
And that, as I said, is good for everyone. We feel like it's good for everyone.
Oh yeah.
That's my sense of things.
Oh yeah. No, I'd be really curious to see even like with my dog who can be, I mean, she's in the room with me.
Sure.
Yeah. It's keeping her in the room from me. I mean, I feel like I'm always trying to find ways to help her. I know with dogs, they can get bored easily. Like their mental health matters, and we sometimes forget that. And I'm always looking for ways to optimize her. Like I always wear, I have this on, and I always have it on my dog. Like I am really into just taking care of her. She's like a biohacking puppy, I always say. So I would love to hear. Well, first of all, you guys, if you're listening and you're like, wait, hold up, I need this Beacon40, because you do. I will make sure to put a discount code in the show notes for you. So make sure that you go check it out and shop and check them on social media. Really cool stuff. And then I know that obviously like with this is a great component. And then lifestyle is really important to you guys, like you mentioned earlier. I would love to hear from each of you, like what would be like your top lifestyle tip that you like to implement for brain health?
Want to start?
Well, the top lifestyle tip would be to spend an hour a day in 40 hertz light.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think establishing some quiet routine, a spot in your day that is uncomplicated and you are determined to keep uncomplicated. For meditation or reflection, but just uncomplicated.
I love that. Simplify. I love that.
Simplify.
For me, I'm working on some specific things, having come back from 40 years of Zen round two. Recently, I am working on things, optimizing my sleep, and I'm taking some supplements. I'm of a certain age and starting to have lifestyle changes. So I'm trying to figure out and using an Aura ring to track these things as I travel, jet lag, and scheduling my work around times that I'm at my best. I'm using magnesium at night, GABA sometimes, trying to see that, going to bed at the same time each night, and winding down before bed. As my top tip, I would say, is really to pay attention and have presence and take time throughout the day to check in, because I've lived my life on autopilot so long. And it's not just about brain health. It's like you said, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. I didn't know for a long time the difference between them. I didn't realize that I was so far off because I was just so focused on what I was doing to recognize how I'm feeling. So my number one health hack right now is to check in with myself throughout the day. How am I feeling? And if I check all those boxes, I'm not hungry, I'm not sleepy, I'm not tired, or if I need to, take a rest, take a snack, take a drink, and knowing where my body is at any moment.
This is also a good time for me to mention that one of the other things I'm working on, let's call it a spiritual offering called the Unified Path. And it is the proposition that we are whole beings, and that we need to address ourselves fully as we say, body, mind, heart, and soul. But unless we address all of these areas of our being, something's going to be left out. We're going to come up short. We're going to spend too much time in one area and not enough in another. So the first part of the Unified Path is an assessment of what are the parts of myself that are being nourished and aren't being nourished. And I'd just like to offer that as part of this discussion.
Absolutely. No, I love that. It's so true. We're so deeply connected. And then, with the unified path, I think people sometimes forget that like spirit, mind, body, like soul, it's all so intertwined. And what would you say were like some of the ways that you nourish like the whole being?
Well, by looking at the various components and making sure that they're all addressed,
Yeah.
and that you can't address all of yourself by a practice like meditation or a physical exercise. Yet physical exercise or the body is something that we have and will always be with us and needs to be included somehow in our wholeness and our direction and our worldly life and our spiritual life. So that, yes, body, mind, heart, and soul, all of these things are important.
Beautiful. No, I absolutely agree. And this kind of ties into the question I had about your health goals. I feel like you both kind of gave me a little bit. So do you guys have like outside of brain health, do you have any fun little health goals that you're working on?
You want to talk about your spiritual?
Well, the the health goal I'm working on is in conjunction with the Unified Path.
Yeah.
And you can get a better look at that at theunifiedpath.com. But it's the proposition that we are whole, and the first part of that is to look at ourselves and do a self-assessment on our wholeness and what might be missing. And I think that's the most important thing to be done, and it's something that I try to do regularly.
I love that. I love that you mentioned you do it regularly. Like it's a moving target. I think sometimes people have this idea that you arrive at health and then you're there, but like wellness, and I try to preach is like it's always a moving target. It keeps life exciting. There's no point where you're stagnant. What worked for you in one season might change in another. And so I like that you mentioned like you're doing this at a reoccurring basis, not just like, okay, like I've arrived, I'm solid, I'm good. I think that's really important to note.
Yes, and these things change over time.
Yeah.
And they're different for all of us. So the notion of self-assessment is really essential for us as individuals and over time as we change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Thalia, what about you?
So for me, as I'm approaching a certain stage in life, my hormones are starting to shift around, and some with me recognizing sleep, and that affects my mental health, that's a big factor. I touched on that earlier. I'm starting to pay more attention to my body and learn about what I can do with hormone therapy, possibly exploring those options, fasting, and adjusting my diet around these hormonal changes. And I'm not doing fasting yet, but exploring, will this be something that at certain times of my cycle or certain times of my hormonal shifts, how I can feel better in my body, exploring new things around my sexual health, some products, creams, and other activities to maintain a vitality and youthfulness. Because now I realize, I just turned 50 last year, that I want to make the next 50 years. I don't want to bring the real estate from the past 50 years into the next 50 years. I want to buy and I want to invest and expand on a new property. So I'm looking at all the options that I can, but I'm starting with a focus on exploring and learning about hormonal changes proactively, I will add, before they start really shifting into gear. I'm starting to notice a few things, but not there yet. But I want to be ahead of that and know it's not because I didn't sleep well, or it's not because I'm this ball of anxiety. So if I'm having brain fog, I can kind of hone in, oh, maybe my hormones. Or if I'm having, cravings and hunger, and I'm like, wait a second, I don't feel like working out, or what's going on here, not having energy, understanding maybe the hormonal side of that and how nutrition can affect that as well. So it's exciting at the same time, because I know I'm going into a new phase, but then it's also, I know I can have power over it. I don't just have to accept, okay, this is happening, and I want to have a audacious, 50 plus years, not, fade away. And
Yeah.
Terry's a good example to me of, like, he's doing all these things at his age. So it's making me think, oh, well, I need to, if I want to keep operating this way, I can, but I need to be paying attention and addressing these things. And hormone therapy and some of that, it's hard to get information about it, right? There's a lot
Mhm.
of stuff out there that's confusing. So taking the time to learn about it is my project right now.
I love that. That's amazing. And I'm excited to see the journey too as you're learning and expanding and kind of recentering for a new segment of life. I love that you're like, I don't want to take the last 50 years into this next. It's always looking towards the next, always like the new daily bread, right? It's really important. Well, you guys, I will make sure to put a link to shop Beacon40 in the show notes, of course. So if you are curious and want to shop, check them out. They're really, really phenomenal. And Terry and Thalia, thank you so much for joining me today. I learned so much, and I'm so excited to get the news out there about 40 hertz, the amazing benefits for the brain, whether you're young, old, or anything in between. This is just really, really groundbreaking.
Delaney, thank you for your interest and your help and your enthusiasm about 40 Hertz Light, which is certainly well deserved and greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, if you love this episode, make sure to share it to your stories. Tag Beacon40, tag myself. Let's get the news out there. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.